Alright, welcome back. Oops, I gotta switch my... Perfect, okay. So yeah, I took a video and I tried to switch my screen over, but my screen wasn't being detected. So I've got a new video now. The screen is detected, so let's waste no time. We're on Chapter 9, Metal as a Service. MAAS, standing for Metal as a Service, allows you to treat physical servers like virtual machines. The same ease of use in managing clusters of virtual machines works for physical hardware. MAAS is the name of a service offering by Canonical, which the owner of Canonical, Mark Shuttlesworth, describes as cloud semantics to the bare metal world. MAAS could also refer to the concept of using physical hardware from a vendor that treats hardware much like virtualized hardware. An excellent example of a company like this is SoftLayer, a bare metal provider acquired by IBM. In the pro category, having full control over hardware does have a certain appeal for niche applications. An excellent example of this could be using a GPU-based database. In practice, a regular public cloud could offer similar services, so a full cost-benefit analysis helps when justifying when to use MAAS. Platform as a Service, PaaS, standing for Platform as a Service, is a complete development and deployment environment that has all of the resources necessary to create cloud services. Examples of this include Heroku and Google App Engine. PaaS differs from IaaS, which stands for Infrastructure as a Service. This is Platform as a Service instead. We're not talking about Metal as a Service yet. In that it has development tools, database management tools, and high-level services that offer point-and-click integration. Examples of the types of services that can be bundled are an authentication service, a database service, or a web application service. A justifiable criticism of PaaS is that it can be much more expensive in the long term than IaaS, as discussed previously. However, this depends on the environment. If the organization is unable to enact DevOps behaviors, then the cost is a moot point. In that case, it would be better to pay for a more expensive service that provides more of those capabilities. The opportunity cost of an organization that needs to learn the advanced capabilities of managing an IaaS deployment may be too high for the short lifespan of a startup. It may be smarter for an organization to offload those capabilities to a PaaS provider. Serverless computing. Serverless is one of the newer categories of cloud computing, and it is still actively in development. The real promise of serverless is the ability to spend more time building applications and services and less or no time thinking about how they run. Every major cloud platform has a serverless solution. The building block for serverless solutions is a compute node or function as a service, FaaS. AWS has Lambda, GCW has cloud functions, and Microsoft has Azure functions. Additionally, the underlying execution of these cloud functions has been abstracted away for a runtime. For example, Python 2.7, Python 3.6, or Python 3.7. All of these vendors support Python runtimes, and in some cases they also support customizing the underlying runtime via a customized Docker container. Here is an example of a straightforward AWS Lambda function that grabs the first page of Wikipedia. There are a few things to point out about this Lambda function. The logic itself is in the lambda underscore handler, and it takes two arguments. The first argument event is from whatever has triggered it. The Lambda could be anything from an Amazon CloudWatch event timer to running it with a payload crafted from the AWS Lambda console. The second argument, context, has methods and properties that provide information about the invocation function and execution environments. Okay, so here's an example. Let's try to do this example. I really like how there's a Wikipedia library. I've never seen that before, so let's see if we can get that working. We'll try to pip install that. So I'm opening up my GNS3 lab. We could do the example just on my workstation. You know what? Let's do that. We're gonna not use the GNS3 lab for now. We're gonna open up a command prompt instead here. Go into the my project directory that I've been using and do a activate a virtual environment, and then we'll do a pip install Wikipedia. There we go, we got it. Okay, and then we'll make a new file called chapter 9. Let's put it in its own directory actually. Okay, and then we'll change directories into it, and we'll call this, let's see if they give us a name for this. I don't see a name for this. So we'll just call it Wikipedia Fetcher. Okay, and I can use this command here code to open up Visual Studio Code. Get a lot of benefits from that, especially if you're using source control, which you definitely need to be using if you're ever doing something just not on the fly. If you're gonna hand your work in, you're gonna deliver it somewhere, you got to use source control, because you could come to the day when it's due and oops, like I made a bunch of changes and now I've got to deliver this buggy, broken thing. Whereas if you're using source control, oops, it's broken, let me just revert back to the previous version where I know it was working and hand that in. Or even better, I know it's due a week from now, so let's get it perfect now. Okay, it's perfect, let's preserve it, move over, continue our development. If anything absolutely has to go in before the due line, we'll put it in that other branch. But basically when it's due, we hand in the pristine one, and then we're already working towards the next due date. Alright, so this is going to be called Wikipedia Fetcher. The other big advantage we get from using Visual Studio Code instead of just using it in the interactive terminal or something like IPython is we can run and debug. Not only that, if you're you can also use cells like this that are kind of similar to IPython, or sorry, similar to Jupyter notebooks. So you can run your cell like this. The other thing you can do, which I used to do all the time, I'll probably, I don't know, maybe use cells more now, but okay, it looks like there's some requirements I had that weren't met, but this opened up this terminal. This is one thing I like to do. I've got, I'm running Windows, so I've got Git Bash installed, so I can have a Bash terminal. And I like to just run IPython down here when I play around with the code. That I found works the best for me. But when I figured that out, I didn't know about features like the debug or um, uh, the cells. All right, but let's just keep it simple and follow along with this example in the easiest possible way for me, which might be more complicated from the perspective of somebody who's at a higher level than I am. Okay, so the variable here, we're using res, that stands for response. Okay, let's give it a shot. So we don't need to rebug it, we need to just run it. So down here, the other really nice thing you can do, if we right click on this, we can do reveal in, oh shoot, I think I gotta open up, here we go, open an integrated terminal. And it shows up in my open editors section. I don't have this open specifically to a file, but so we've got it down here. So let's see what happens when I run it. So I can tell you what's going to happen already. I don't have the virtual environment enabled, so we'll see that Wikipedia is not installed in my global environments. Okay, that's strange. I don't understand why that worked. Loading function? That's not in my code, is it? Oh, it is. Oh, you know what? It looks like their example here is missing a line of code. They define the function, but they never call it. So let's do that. Oops. Okay, well, I don't know what they want to be fed to it. They want to feed it. See, now this is where it gets tricky because they want to feed it this, but they defined it to take event and context variables. So this is only going to be one uh, argument or event and context parameters. Sorry. So this is only going to be one argument fed, but it requires two arguments because there are two parameters defined. So I don't understand why they think this will work. Chapter 9 might be another dud chapter, to be honest. Like, they can't even get the basics of Python right now. Like, this is really upsetting to me. We'll try it. Let's try it, but it's not going to work. So let's try it like this. We're going to do IPython. We are going to activate that virtual environment though first. Okay, then we'll do an IPython. Okay, then we'll copy this and paste it in. Delete that last bit. All right, so now we got that function, so let's call the function. Okay, and then we're going to pass it exactly what the book is saying to pass it. And there we go. Lambda handler missing one required positional argument, context. We only passed it one argument. The Python dictionary, even though there are two elements in the dictionary, a key and a value, that is just one element in the dictionary. It's the item element. So an item element has two elements. It has a key and a value, but those are pairs. So and they take items. So each dictionary contains an item. So and each dictionary is one object. So we only passed it one argument, even though the argument we passed it had a key and a value pair, which to the authors of this book apparently looks as if it is two different arguments. I'm seriously like, I'm like really angry at this. Like, is that really, like really? Is this really what? Oh my dear Lord. Okay, so I think, yeah, okay, I'm really angry by that. I wasted so much time on this book. I could have been doing IPython tutorials, or real Python tutorials. There's so much I could have been doing besides reading this book. I could have simply just not been reading this book. Like, this was not fun for me. I could have been making a video game. I could have been learning to do the. Here, I'll show you why I'm so angry right now. Because if you look at Learn Python the Hard Way, first of all, I could have been doing this book. I haven't done this book all the way through yet, and it's kind of bad on me too, because I recommend this as a source to use, but I've never used it myself. Oh, it looks like it actually just got some pretty bad reviews. Where is that site I saw before? I saw a site before where, like, it was like learnpythonthehardway.com. It was like the site by the author. Oh yeah, this is it. So yeah, this is a shopping page though. I need to go to the main page. No, that's the hard way. That's a different book. I want to learn. Oh, I want to use automate the boring stuff. Oh, I was actually looking at the wrong book. I do recommend learning Python the hard way as well. That's actually the one I used that really actually worked for me in a lot of ways. Um, but this is the one I've been recommending to a lot of people as well because the site looks great. There's a lot of different things you can learn. It's all free. So this is why I'm kind of upset right now because I've been wanting to like make like a 2D side scroller or like an RPG like what's the name of that game, like Undertale style, like just like obviously not like Undertale, but I've been wanting to learn to like create graphics and images using Python and stuff, and I could have been doing that if I were reading this book, but instead I'm reading this book that doesn't even know how to pass in arguments to functions. Alright, but let's keep going. We're almost halfway there. I realize it's the sunk cost fallacy, but let's just keep going. The output of the Lambda is also a JSON payload. One of the most potent aspects of FAAS, which stands for what? I thought we have an I, we have an S. Do we have an F? No, we have a P, we have an M, and we have an I thought. Yeah, we have an I, we have an M, we have a P, and we have an S. So we have infrastructure as a service, metal as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. So is FAAS a new one? Where was FAAS defined? FAAS, where is this? Oh, okay, here we go. Function as a service. Okay. Okay, function as a service. Calm down. Yeah, I gotta calm down after that. I did not know what that F stood for. It stands for function. One of the most potent aspects of FAAS is the ability to write code that responds to events versus code that is continuously running. For example, a Ruby on Rails application. FAAS is a cloud-native capability that truly exploits what a cloud is best at: elasticity. Additionally, the development environment for writing Lambda functions has evolved considerably. Cloud9 on AWS is a browser-based development environment with deep integrations into AWS. Cloud9 is now my preferred environment for writing AWS Lambda functions and for writing code that needs the AWS API keys. Cloud9 has built-in tools for writing AWS Lambda functions that make it straightforward to build and test them locally, as well as deploying them into AWS. Figure 9-4 shows how you can pass in JSON payload and test a Lambda locally in Cloud9. Testing this way is a significant advantage of the evolving platform. Likewise, Google Cloud starts you off with the GCP Cloud Shell environment. Figure 9.5. Cloud Shell also allows you to bootstrap development quickly with access to critical command line tools and a full development environment. Sorry, my brain is, I sometimes like think like kind of like multi-threadedly, where like I have like a parallel thought along with like what I'm doing, and it's usually like a memory, and like sometimes it's a different kind of memory, and like sometimes it's a funny memory and I laugh at it, but let me try to focus a little bit better. We're moving on to the next section, the GCP Cloud Shell Editor. See Figure 9-6 is a full-fledged IDE with syntax highlighting, a file explorer, and many other tools generally found in a traditional IDE. The key takeaway is that with the cloud, it is also best to use native deployment tools when possible. It reduces security holes, limits slowdowns from transferring data from your laptop to the cloud, and increases productivity due to the deep integration with its native environment. Software as a service. SaaS and the cloud have been joined together from day one. As the cloud gets features, SaaS products continue to distribute innovation on top of the innovations of the cloud. There are many advantages of SaaS products, especially in the DevOps space. For example, why build a monitoring solution if you can rent it, especially when first starting? Additionally, many core DevOps principles, such as continuous integration and continuous delivery, are also made available by SaaS applications offered by cloud vendors, such as AWS Code Pipeline or third-party SaaS solutions like CircleCI. In many cases, the ability to mix IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS allows modern companies to develop products in a much more reliable and efficient manner than they could 10 years prior. Every year gets easier to build software thanks to the rapid evolution of not just of the cloud, but of the SaaS companies building solutions on top of the cloud. Infrastructure as a service. IAC, Infrastructure as a Service, is covered in much greater detail in Chapter 10. Refer to that chapter for a more detailed breakdown of IAC. Regarding the cloud and DevOps, though, IAC is a fundamental aspect of real-world cloud computing. IAC is a must-have capability to implement DevOps practices on the cloud. Continuous delivery. Continuous delivery is a newer term that can be easily confused between continuous integration and continuous deployment. The critical difference is that software is delivered to some environment, say a staging environment, where it can undergo both automated and manual testing. Although it doesn't require deployment immediately, it is in a deployable state. More detailed explanations of build systems can be found in Chapter 15, but it is also worth pointing out that this is a fundamental requirement to using the cloud correctly. Virtualization and containers. There is no more fundamental component of the cloud than virtualization. When AWS officially launched in 2006, Amazon Elastic Compute Cloud, EC2, was one of the core services released. There are a few key areas of virtualization to discuss. I'm sorry, my voice is going into a state that I'm feeling right now, which is just a lot of frustration with this book. This book would be great, I think, if you were a manager or like a head of a department and you just wanted to kind of change things up and figure out how you can save money. Another thing I think this book would be great for is if you were like a small business owner and you knew you needed some kind of IT services. So you were looking at like which IT services you wanted to purchase and how you wanted to purchase them. Is it better to purchase a cloud product that you try to set up yourself, or you try to have somebody who's not a specialist, just a regular employee, set this up? Or is it better to pay for a contractor, which can get quite expensive, and have them like actually build something for you and come up with a plan of things to hardware to set up in your site? So I think this would be a great book for people in kind of decisions like that aren't going to be spending their careers necessarily focusing on technical side of things, but for people like that, who are like me, who are interested in a career on the technical side of things, I'm sorry, I just don't recommend this book. I would give it probably 2 out of 5 stars. I would give it 1 extra star because, as I said, this would be great for people who just want kind of a high overview of like what's out there and what they can do to save money in their business. But I mean, there's been typos all over. There's been like this book is not about Python for DevOps, so I can't give it more than 2 stars. I'm even very hesitant to give it more than 1 star, because if the title is wrong, then you read half the book and you realize, oh, the title is wrong. This is not about Python for DevOps. This is about this is a sales manual for DevOps services to business owners. That's what this book is. All right, but let's do the best I can. Let's see how close I am to finishing. Okay, let's try to get to challenges and opportunities. Oh, I don't think I can do it, honestly. I can't do it. Okay, so we'll just so right now we're on continuous delivery. Wait, now I'm confused. Where was I? Oh, okay. So I'm here. Okay. Yeah, I don't even know where I was. I'm really upset with this book. I don't want to continue reading it. Sunk cost fallacy. Let's I realize I'm halfway done, and I think the normal way to think would be, and the way I actually used to think, would be, okay, well, I'm this far in, I might as well continue, because otherwise, oops, that first half of the book was the first half of the book. I'm somehow not going to be able to keep that first half of the book. It's going to go away if I don't finish the rest half. Well, that's completely false. I already read the first half of the book. And not only that, if I continue to read the second half of the book and it's the same quality as the first half of the book, I've just wasted, double the time I wasted when I'm not satisfied with the first half of the book. So a much better course of action is not to continue reading this book. It's to go and find a better resource that is more advantageous for me to spend time on. So you know what? I'm gonna do that. I'm done. I can't handle the error they had where they tried to pass one argument into a function where 2 parameters were defined. That broke me. I can't handle that. Just this book is supposed to be about Python mainly. That's what the title says. It's Python. That's the first word in the title is Python. So if they don't know how to program in Python, I have nothing to learn from these authors. I understand that exposure to these topics is important for certain people, for like business owners and high-level executives in companies. But for me, who really is interested on the technical side, on building things, on solving problems, on kind of revolutionizing processes, like this book just isn't going to do it. It's just not for that. So let's take another look at the table of contents. Okay, and let's see where I am right now. I don't know where I am right now. Oh, I'm here. Serverless technologies. I think. I'm on chapter 9, I know that. Oh, here we go. So yeah, this is chapter 9 here. Oh, actually, am I on chapter 10? Oh, no. Number 10 is chapter 9. So that's another thing that, although this book does have a table of contents, which apparently is a high bar nowadays, the table of contents is bad. Like, this should be 9. Like, they should just use the same numbers here. Like, why can't anybody write a freaking book? I guess it's Amazon book. So you know what we're gonna do? Yeah, we're gonna end it. It looks like there might be some interesting things coming up. So we might come back to this later, but I've really been wanting to read a book on organizing your Python projects, because that's something I'm really not good at. A lot of my Python experience is just writing quick scripts and stuff. So if I want to build a program that I compile and then I hand out and that, you know, I want other people to contribute to and stuff like that, I'm going to need to change up a lot of how I program in Python. So that's going to be it for this book, unfortunately. I really wish I could have stuck it out and gone through, but chapters 7, 8, and 9 were just so bad that I maybe the book gets better and it turns out to be the best book I've ever read in my life, but unfortunately I don't have time for it to do that. I need to learn other things. So, I mean, this stuff looks interesting. Like, what is this? Okay, let me read this quick, and then that'll be it. So 60 seconds to launch. Working at one of the top film studios in the world, with one of the largest supercomputers in the world, is a great way to see what happens at scale. One of the critical issues with open source software is that it may be built on a laptop in isolation from the needs of a large company. A developer is trying to solve a particular problem. On the other hand, the solution is elegant, but another hand, on the one hand, the solution is elegant, but on another hand, it creates a problem. One of these problems in Python surfaced at this film studio because they had to deal with petabytes of data on a centralized file server. Python scripts were the currency of the company, and they ran just about everywhere. Unfortunately, they took around 60 seconds to launch. A few of us got together to solve this issue, and we used one of our favorite tools, strace. The Python 2 is ONLOGN, or super linear time, for module lookup. The number of directories in your path would at least linearly increase the time it took to launch the script. This performance penalty became a real problem at the film studio because this often meant more than 100,000 calls to the file system to launch a Python script. This process was not only slow, but incrementally destructive to the performance of the file server. Eventually, this started to crush the centralized multi-million-dollar file server completely. The solution was a combination of doing a deep dive with strace, for example, using the right tool for the job, and also hacking Python to stop looking up imports by using paths. Earlier versions of Python have addressed this issue through caching lookups, but it pays to learn tools that enable you to do a deep dive on performance. A final touch is to always run profiling as a part of the continuous integration process to catch these types of performance bugs. Note, 2 other situations at film studios involving bad UX design combined with lousy architecture come to mind. One day, an animator came over to the main engineering section and asked for advice on solving a problem with a FileMaker Pro database that had been set up. The FileMaker Pro database that kept track of shots for the animation department kept getting deleted. When I asked to look at the database, there was a UI with 2 buttons next to each other. One was a medium-sized green button that said Save Entry, and the other was a large red button that said Delete Database. What the heck? At a completely different company, we noticed that one particular IP address was sending a tremendous amount of load toward the production MySQL database. When we tracked down the developer, they seemed a bit hesitant to talk to us. We asked if their department was doing anything special. They said they had a PyQt GUI that performed automation tasks. When we looked at the GUI, there were several buttons of normal size and then a large button labeled Go. We asked what the Go button did, and the developer sheepishly said that everyone knows you don't press that button. I opened up an SSH connection to our database and ran top on the MySQL server. Next, I did press that button, despite his protests not to. Sure enough, the database immediately went to 100% CPU, sustained for several minutes. Yeah, I mean, this is why I'm a bit hesitant to stop reading this book, because it seems like these are just some dud chapters. Like, there's 3 different authors, so it seems like one author just kind of wasn't all that into writing this book, but the others might be. So I want to keep going. Let's go to the next big section. Well, you know what? Let me just stop here because I need to kind of cool down and come back to this later and think to myself, kind of get over this mental state that I'm wasting valuable time in reading this book where I could be reading other things. So let me try to move on from that. I might actually make another video. I've got some time here, but I just don't want to push through it when I could be spending time on something else. But of course, the worst thing I can do is just waffle between one action and another, and before I know it, I spent an hour doing absolutely nothing, basically just deciding what I wanted to do, and I could have used that hour for reading the rest of this book or moving on to something else. So that's the absolute worst thing I can do. So I'm going to stop this video, and I'm going to make another video today, but we'll see what that video is. So thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video in this series, if there is one, but this might be the end of the series. I'm thinking now, though, it probably won't be. I'm going to try to get through the rest of this book.